Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange. Stories, tools, and wisdom shared by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence and release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's show. Greetings. This is the Nonprofit Exchange. I'm your host, Hugh Ballou. Nonprofit leaders can be deeply committed to their missions while unknowingly repeat patterns that undermine their own effectiveness. This conversation explores how self-sabotage can show up as overgiving, avoidance, overfunctioning, withdrawal, weak follow-through, and difficulty having necessary conversations, and how a leader's repeated patterns can eventually influence accountability, performance, and organizational culture. So, Dr. Philip Agrios is a self-sabotage expert, best-selling author, international speaker, and creator of the T Now method, which he will share with you. After more than 30 years of research and work with thousands of people, he developed a counterintuitive premise. The same trait driving a person's success can also be the trait sabotaging it, rather than treating it as a trait or as a flaw to fix. His work focuses on recognizing when it is operating in protection rather than growth. He works with business owners, nonprofit leaders, executive directors when self-sabotaging patterns have become too costly to ignore and showing up as overgiving until burnout, avoiding difficult decisions, taking on work that belongs to others, withdrawing from the necessary conversations, or repeatedly failing to follow through. His approach teaches leaders to recognize the pattern as it appears and shift their response so they can lead and perform at a higher level. So, Dr. Philip, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, and tell us about this self-sabotage and how we understand why it's so important.
Hi, Hugh. Thank you so much for the honor of being here. As well for your audience of nonprofit leaders, which they have such a big heart, and a lot of times that heart can cause them heartache and so many other things, trying their best to help others and not allowing themselves to help themselves. So basically, what I was able to really understand and discover was that self-sabotage doesn't undermine us. It actually protects us from the very success that we're trying to achieve. Because on a subconscious level, and sometimes consciously, attaining that level of success is more painful. So we stay doing the same things over and over again and never get to that point. And after reviewing and researching and working with so many people, I was able to understand that there is actually a protective sequence that we're born with. And that sequence is there just to protect us. Because as humans, there's only two things we do. We protect or we grow. That's it. So as we're going down that protective mechanism, because you might have heard this before, that our primitive brain called the amygdala is always looking to protect us. So because it's just waiting for the other thing, the other shoe to drop and everything else. But what I was able to understand over the 30 years was that the same pattern, when shifted the other way, actually brings us into growth so that we can start to perform at the level that we know deep down we're capable of performing. So you have to realize there's a dichotomy of growth and protection. And depending on what you want at that moment will determine what you tap into yourself, because they're both sitting there waiting for you to use.
That's a reframing, sort of a paradox, as you were. So, looking at nonprofit leaders in this area of self-sabotage, what are some of the common behaviors that you see, and why is this valuable for them to know?
So there's a variety of ways that, depending on the sequence or the trait that they're born with, will cause them to react and act in certain different ways. So some may be overgiving. They want to give as much as they can to this nonprofit because it's such a great thing to help others with, but it causes them to get more drained. They don't have boundaries. They have a hard time saying no. Um, they're giving, and but no one's giving back because they're so used of people just taking advantage of their kindness. Others are very creative. They want to do this and they start throwing things here. Let's do this. Let's do this. And they can be very scattered and chaotic and they wing things instead of sitting there, focusing and following through. They'll shift here and then shift there and cause the organization itself to not know what to do, who to go to, and create confusion. Others have great ideas, but they hold it to themselves. They don't want to feel stupid or they don't want to feel embarrassed, so they pull back a bit. And then 3 hours later or 3 days later, go, I should have said this, right? So, and they have a hard time verbally at that moment to help respect and honor themselves, to show their brilliance and to converse, but they don't express it, so they hold back and hold it in. So those are basically some of the things that they're doing that is not also causing problems within their own field, but it's also creating a challenge in the organization itself.
Wow. Wow. So a couple of things come to mind. And talk about the blind spots there that we don't know it, but also related to that, psychiatrist Murray Bowen, who created Bowen Family Systems, talks about overfunctioning as irresponsible responsibility. I don't think he wrote on that, but he spoke on that in some of his videos. So it's invisible to us, and then the impact of overfunctioning, because there's a reciprocity that your culture underfunctions, right?
Mhm. Yeah. So you can look at it as two ways of how we protect. We either overly engage, force things through, overly communicate, just keep on giving, 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 or we disengage, kind of like go within ourselves, give to ourselves because we're so exhausted that we have to take for ourselves. We don't talk, or you get too focused on something, and 2 days later you emerge and go, "Oh, I got that done," but now there's so much more to do because they didn't focus on it in a more evenly way. So it's either way. If those of you who are not seeing, I'm putting my hand up, and my other hand is going back and forth over it, like the cow jumping over the moon, right? Because one way could be overly engaging, the other way could be overly disengaging. And depending on the degree of that, let's say at a scale of 1 to 10, one day you're a 10 overly engaging, but then you're maybe a 3 under engaging and kind of finding that balance between the two. And what I found was by using the T now method, it allows the person to immediately start to go into that balance of engaging in a more balanced and more harmonious way of giving and taking more effectively. And the T actually stands for transcend. Because when you use the T now method, you actually transcend immediately any adversity, no matter big or small. Because when you do that, you shift it into growth immediately, never fails, and it works 100% of the time.
Tell us about your book. Don't you have a book by that same name?
The book is called Life's One Law. I way back when I was able to discover that there are actually 6 steps that nature uses to come back from her storm. And I realized that blueprint, which I call nature's blueprint, is the same blueprint within us that solves any business or personal problems. And then when I took the opposite steps and put them together, it created 3 basic principles of the universe. And I call them the director, the supplier, and the communicator, because that's all that the galaxies and the atoms do. They direct, supply, and communicate. And then I realized those 3 principles were made up of the same dust and particles as the universe. So I shifted it into the 3 traits. So we are made up of a director, a supplier, and a communicator, because that's all we do. And then when I realized that there was a particular sequence that we're born with, and that sequence is made up of your superpower, a bridge trait, and then your saboteur, and they work like a seesaw together. That's when I discovered that this is basically just 3 things within us driving our success or driving our failure, or just is.
That was very helpful. This, I want to point out people that are in the audience, you're trying to grab all these great gems. Don't worry. There's going to be a full transcript available on the website for this at the Nonprofit Exchange. So write down ideas that come to you. What are you going to do about it? You're going to
Mhm.
learn a lot of things, but write down some action items. What are you going to do about it? So let's dig deeper into this protection versus growth.
Mhm.
And I find that there are, and the burnout piece of this too. We've sort of hinted around it, but the burnout with nonprofit leaders is about 50% plus or minus, and it's huge. And so we struggle with that, and we bring a lot of it on ourselves. Can you go deeper in this protection versus growth paradigm that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the question is what is the reason why you became a member or a leader of this nonprofit? What is your goal and what is your desire, right? The why. And a lot of times our why can fuel us into overreacting and overgiving and doing things and wanting to help so badly that we don't realize that you're actually putting a wrench in the machine, right? So if you're a leader that's kind of, giving orders and doing this, or maybe you tell them to do something, people don't get it done, then you do it for them. I remember a leader in the organization was when the people went home, she would finish their work for them. And I was like, do you understand you're actually enabling and weakening them? Because when you take something away from somebody and you have not given them ample time to prove them, you're actually saying, I don't trust you, right? I'll do it myself. I get it done quicker. You probably have heard people do that before, right? So you're actually causing a subconscious where you don't trust me. So two things, that person won't do anything, or they're now overly give to try to show that leader what they can do, which creates even more of a dynamic. So that could be one scenario that the leader creates a protection. And then because of their willingness of trying to help, it actually backfires and causes a problem within the culture of the organization.
Wow. Those are powerful. Of course, I've never done any of this. Oh my word. So, as a musical conductor, what I learned from teachers of conducting is what the orchestra, the choir, what they see is what you get.
Mhm.
So go into the impact that we have on the culture, and it becomes evident when any of us that have had children say, "Where did you learn that?" And they go, "Uh-oh." So, the reflection is the culture of us. So, what's our role in shaping the culture, either good or bad?
The role is to create any harmonious um, culture, right? Of everybody has a particular role, right? One of the things that if a nonprofit doesn't have an organizational chart, they're, in my opinion, doomed to fail. Because number one, people don't know who to go to in certain situations, right? But when you're in that role of whether or not a CEO, COO, CFO, and you stay in your lane, then people know where to go. And then from there, how does that C-suite board, how do they work together harmoniously with each other instead of one doing more than the other, right? So you've seen those particular situations, correct?
Hmm.
Right.
Yes.
So what happens is it becomes judgmental of, oh, this person's always doing this, and people talk about the other person's behind their back and all that. And one of the things I was able to really help with when I go into organizations is show them to stop the judgmental, stop them from judging themselves. I can talk, and don't judge me that I didn't talk. No, judging themselves. So basically, when that person does something that you don't like, what I found is that that's your superpower and it's not theirs. Well, why can't you just take a note? Why can't you just follow through? Or why can't you just tell me what's going on and talk to me, right? Because it's easier for you than the other person. So we judge that other person and vice versa. They're saying the same thing about you that they don't like. But when they understand each person's sequence, that judgment turns into compassion. Now they understand why the person's doing what they're doing, and then they can help that person according to what they need, not what that person thinks they need, which is really what they need. Then that harmonious collaboration comes into play, and now everybody's working like the orchestra should, instead of the horns coming in at the wrong time and the strings coming in sooner than they should have. So once you understand, it's like same thing with a spouse or children. Once you understand the sequences of the people that you love or your coworkers or even your business partner and your thing, you'll know why they do what they do. They'll know why you do what you do. And then therefore you both can work on each other and help each other in the way you both need to be supported.
So we have a lot of assumptions that we inherit or we carry with us or we've learned wrong, some leadership traits as nonprofit leaders, and it's more abundant there. I'm thinking of I'd rather do it myself. And they sort of put it in the context of I've got to be willing to do what I ask other people to do. And I say the operative word here is willing.
Mhm.
And I say every time you do something that a volunteer could do, you're robbing them of an opportunity to share their passion in your project. So talk about that unwillingness because I think we don't know how to delegate and then we don't know how to correct. And the analogy I give people is we're in a rehearsal and I stop and I say, trumpets, that's too loud. Take it down one dynamic level. I didn't insult them. They didn't feel insulted. I was analytical and I gave them specific directions. Then we had another go at it. So we're afraid that we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And we often hurt everybody else's feelings because we didn't deal with it. So talk about this dynamic of our position of authority and how not to abuse it, but how to use it effectively.
One of the things, depending on the culture, right? Depending on who is where and what their positions are, I've always, and I've had employees where instead of me just saying, well, you got to do this, I would say, I've noticed something happening. Is it okay if I give you some thoughts here?
Mhm.
Right? So what are you doing? You're asking permission to show them what they're doing. Now, if you're an authority, of course they're going to say yes. I'm not going to say no, get out of my face. Your spouse may, or your kids may. I mean, there's a joke in my house when I go, I have a thought for you. So I'm like, would you like to hear it? Kind of like, I want to say something to you because you're going down the damn wrong road. But you know what? If you're open to it, great. And if they say no, you go, cool, and you move on, right? But in this situation, in the hierarchy, of course they're going to say yeah. So what happens is you're asking permission, and then you say, what I've noticed, not this is what you're doing wrong. What I've noticed was that you're doing this and this, and in my opinion, it's not as effective. Are you open to something else that I saw within my own being and helped so many other people have done it like you? That could be more efficient, so it saves you more time and frustration. Are you open to that? What are they going to say? No. So when you do it that way, and that's where the ego comes into play, where you're not, remember, you got to realize we're humans. We're equal to each other in that way. However, when people came to me as a doctor, yes, was I above them here? Yeah, because I knew knowledge, not because I was above them as a human, because I knew more than them. But if I went to them, then they would have more knowledge and they would be in a hierarchy, correct? So the person who's in a C-suite is there because they have more knowledge and some more leadership that they can guide others to bring them up to their level as well. So just that one approach could help neutralize any challenges or problems that can cause friction.
That's so helpful. We let me give an analogy. As a conductor, people think, "Oh, you're a dictator. You tell everybody what to do." Well, I got to tell you, I got a whole bunch of union musicians that are pretty cocky. They're daring me. I got a little white stick. They're going to work for 2 hours. They're going to leave. I can't make them do anything.
Mhm.
I can, however, influence them. So speak of the power of influence over our perceived power of authority.
Well, the thought process of authority is that I'm going to tell you what to do because I think that's best. No one likes to be told what to do unless the person is just totally clueless and they just want to be a follower and just say, just tell me what to do and I'm okay with it, which is fine. Doesn't mean they're a horrible person, doesn't mean they're weak, whatever. It's just who they are and that works best for them. But to influence somebody as a leader, that's the true, to me, meaning of a leader. The other one is more of a just a person who has an ego that has to do that to feel better at that moment because maybe they feel lousy and they start screaming at the people because they're doing the same thing. And I can always show that with my clients, those who are doing that. When you're upset with somebody, you're actually doing the same thing as them. That's why you're not patient with them because you're not patient with yourself. But in that influence as a leader, it's how can I serve them so they can improve to make the organization improve and become more efficient and scale? Not that I have to lead them and I need the accolades. So I hope, did that answer your question? I might
That's,
have gone
yeah,
off a little
yeah.
bit.
Those are ways things I never thought about. And so remind people there's a lot of really good things you can get from the transcript, and there'll be the full recording here. So tell us about the T now. Walk us through the T now method and what will people learn from your book?
So the book and the T now method are different. Back when I've been told I need to read it, uh, to write another book, and it will, but not at this moment. Too busy with so many other things. The book back in, I think it was 2018, 19 that I wrote it, was basically just to show the discovery I made, to help people to see what was different about it. And near the end talks about the traits. Now my programs focus more on the traits and not uh, the blueprint itself. So the analogy I love to give to help people to understand more about this. Imagine that you see a domino right in front of you, and to the right of you, okay, there is a this domino master set up this beautiful whole thing, right? And you push the domino to the right, and all of a sudden it goes, right? And then let's say balloons are released. Well, what's the last thing you see? The balloons, right? That's your imposter syndrome, your anxiety, your PTSD, your overly giving, your not talking, your scatteredness, and everything else that you don't want, that's not really effective for you. So what's easier? Hold down all the balloons and stop pushing the one domino. That one domino is that inborn sabotaging trait that creates every negative emotion that you experience. But what you don't realize is that to the other side is another domino setup. But fireworks are the ones that go off. That's reaching your goals and your purpose and being the performer that you know you can reach. But then you realize when you push this domino to the other side, the fireworks go off. But you don't realize that the same domino kicks off either the bread balloons or the fireworks, which are total opposites. So the balloons is your protective mechanism, and the fireworks is your growth mechanism. And depending on understanding, so what the T now method basically does, it helps you to identify that one domino. It helps you identify why you're pushing it down the road of protection, struggle, self-sabotage, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. And how to, on a conscious level, shift it into the growth mode and to a point of doing it so many times that now the growth mode is more subconscious than your protective mode. So that's what basically the premise of what I was able to uncover.
I love it. I love it. So people will find you at your website. So give us what that link is, please.
Yeah, it's the tnowmethod.com, the tnowmethod.com. And when they go there, yes, is self-sabotage becoming too expensive to ignore? And that's what happens. It costs you money, relationships, to love, to so many other different joy that it is. And then if they go down, then they can, if they are a team leader, a business owner, or sales professional, executive, Then to keep going all the way down to the right is a way they can push on that. They can have a little bit more of a 10-minute free training, and then they can have a discovery call. It's a confidential free discovery call. Or if not, they can go to the other side, goes into more about the book and some other things that there is an interview with Jack Canfield and I.
Love it, love it, love it. So let's have some fun. Let me do a series of rapid fire questions. You game?
Oh, okay. All right, fine. Let me get myself warmed up. Okay, good. All right.
Okay, here we go. What's one warning sign that tells a leader I'm operating in protection right now?
Being uncomfortable, feeling in fear, feeling worried, anything that causes them to be out of their flow.
What's one question a leader can ask before reacting to a difficult situation?
How is this a benefit for me at this moment in time?
How can a strength become a weakness without the leader realizing it?
I don't believe in strengths or weaknesses within us. It's just the strength is basically how much you use it, and the weakness is how much you don't use it.
That is so well reframed. I agree with you. And the last one, what's one action a leader listening to today can take immediately to interrupt a self-sabotaging pattern?
First, take a deep breath in and say, it's okay. Then they can say, well, that's interesting. And when they say that's interesting, it neutralizes the situation. It allows them to depersonalize the situation because when we react, majority of times it's because we're taking it personally. And it allows you to pull back and look at it like a movie that you're not part of it. It doesn't affect you. And then you can see it more clearly of, okay, I went into protectiveness because of this, this, and this. And what can I do to offset that? Even 10 to 15% more of it. You don't have to do 100%. How can I do it and not better or harder? How can I work harder? How can I work better? Because when you use those words, it's like going up a hill with a bicycle. If you stop, what happens? It goes back down. Imagine just saying, how can I do this differently? Which just means you're going down this road, and all I got to do is make a little left or a little right. It's so much easier going laterally than up and down.
Philip, I've been doing this a long time. I learned things today that I never realized. So thank you for sharing your wisdom on the Nonprofit Exchange. People, the transcript will be in the nonprofitexchange.org and the link to his website. So reach out to Philip. There's so much to learn. So thank you for sharing today on the Nonprofit Exchange.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Nonprofit Exchange.